Thank you.
And I want to acknowledge Laura, who has been doing this for so many years, and it's been a very much a community festival, because we do 3 months of retreat every winter, and usually this talk comes about the time we're coming out of winter retreat and going back into the public. So it's, as you can see, it's a community-wide event to get us out of the house, so to speak, and up. And Laura's devotion and commitment to keeping this going is really admirable and so needed in these times. So welcome to many people. I am preaching to the choir tonight. Many people that I know that know the Abbey well, and also people who are new to the Abbey, welcome as well. I was going to invite everybody to come a little bit closer, but I think we're okay in terms of feeling like, you feel like we're in a group together. And I also just have to confess that I feel a little bit like I should be in a cockpit because this thing feels really big. So I'll get used to that as we go along. Oh, I didn't see you coming. Yeah, so let's start, as we always do, with, as my teacher guides us, that we start with spending a little bit of time of sitting in silence and breathing together. Now, what this does is it helps to settle our own minds, helps to settle our awareness and understanding, and you can also begin to get a sense of how, for this brief moment, for this hour, hour and a half that we spend together, just our presence together creates a sense of community, which we can tune into or not, our choice, it's our choice. But to be in silence, to close our eyes, to breathe, and be in the space in silence actually helps to touch into what we have in common. So let's take some time to just do that. So ideally, your feet are flat on the floor. Sit with your spine as straight as you can. Generally, we advise that you put your hands in your lap, left on the bottom, right on the top, with your thumbs touching. And just take a moment to really relax and let yourself sink into the chair, into the floor. Let yourself be supported by the earth beneath you. Make sure your shoulders are level. You can lift your shoulders and drop them a couple of times if you've been driving or on a computer, feeling a little tight. Just your eyes are lowered, not completely closed, but see if you can keep a little bit of light coming in. Move your attention to your breathing. Not changing the breath, but simply paying attention to it. We take thousands and thousands of breaths a day and almost never notice that we are breathing. Until, for some reason, we're not. But at even not such a subtle level, this breath is really our connection with life, one breath after another. See if you can get a sense of just how it feels for the breath to come in. See if you can get a sense of it filling your whole body. How does it feel when it releases? And take a moment then to bring awareness to your body, from the bottoms of your feet to the top of your head. As you breathe in, notice where there are places that are tight. You can let those soften as the breath comes in, comes out naturally. As we breathe in and breathe out, we can be aware that we're all breathing the same air. Not so subtly, it's apparent that this inhale and exhale is a part of what connects us to each other. And then take a moment to focus your attention more tightly, maybe right on your belly, so you can feel as the breath rises and falls, how your belly expands. As you exhale, it releases. Doing your breath best to keep the mind, the attention on the breath. When it wanders, no problem, just bring it back when you notice. And let's do that together in silence for a few more moments. It's always very helpful before we begin any task, any venture, to stop and check what is our motivation for doing what we're doing. Helps us stay on track. And so for tonight, just think for a moment about what brought you here. What is it that made you get in the car or walk down the block? What's your own personal attention for being at a talk called Bridge Over Troubled Waters at North Idaho College? Whatever that may be for each of us personally, we can expand it a little bit first by thinking about all the other people in this room. What motivated them? Taking time out of a busy life. We all have busy lives. Come spend time thinking about kindness. Just the very fact that each person here had that thought to do it, not just thought, did it, means that we have some shared interest that is also very special. So that whatever comes of this evening, may it be a benefit for everyone in this room. If we go even broader, wider, and think about the troubled waters that may exist in our personal lives, troubled waters in our country, troubled waters around the planet. We can expand our awareness to think how much kindness could benefit other living beings. A moment of kindness, a great amount of kindness, any amount of kindness can bring some soothing relief to individuals involved in any of these troubled water situations. So we can think that as we explore this topic of kindness together, of bridging troubled waters together, and whatever we take away can bring some benefit to the beings around us and ripple far into ways that we probably can't even imagine. So we can set a very big intention that whatever we share together tonight can have the effect of two things: strengthening our own compassion, own capacity for compassion, for kindness, for ourselves and for others, and contribute to the practices of kindness everywhere, for the welfare of all. So set that as a long-term, big picture motivation for our time together tonight. How many people know the song Bridge Over Troubled Waters? How many people don't know the song Bridge Over Troubled Waters? Yeah, okay. Really? I knew there was an age gap here. But actually, so Bridge Over Troubled Waters was a song by Simon and Garfunkel, released in 1970. But it's been covered by over 50 artists. I was impressed with that, including Elvis Presley. Did you know this? Aretha Franklin, Johnny Cash. I would love to hear Johnny Cash's version of this song. And just recently, John Legend, too, released a hit. Yeah, so it's not like extinct. We're getting there, but it's not extinct, yeah. It's been extremely popular. And I won't sing it, and we didn't bring it to play. That was maybe an oversight. But it starts with these very beautiful words. When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I will drive them all. I'll take your part. That might be the right way. Anyway, it goes on. When you need a friend, I'm sailing right behind. Like a bridge over troubled water, I will ease your mind. Now, it was sung by the very beautiful voice of Art Garfunkel. And, you know, as an adolescent, was I an adolescent? Yes, I was still an adolescent. I was still an adolescent in 1970. You know, I could sit and weep for a long time. How many people can confess to sitting and listening and weeping to Art Garfunkel sing that song? Nah. All right, it's a generational thing. The point is, though, that it is a commitment. It is a commitment to be there for someone else. And we all know what troubled waters are like, right? It's a metaphor. This is a very scholarly analysis. This is troubled water, bridge over troubled water is a metaphor meaning to provide assistance and comfort during tough times, just as a bridge facilitates passage over a difficult terrain. Maybe that's self-evident, but that's what it means. But what's the kind of troubled water that we get into? I mean, there are other songs that talk about troubled water too, but it's this idea of troubling water being like a very, very difficult passage. Have you ever looked down on a ravine over a river that's really rushing over rocks over a period of time and just see how fast that water can flow and how powerful water can be when it's moving fast? You ever seen a flood? I mean, the people in Kentucky right now can tell us about floods. The Coeur d'Alene River, as I remember, just looking at you guys. Waters rise, the water flows. There's nothing really you can do. And it's scary. So sometimes in our lives, we have situations like troubled waters. Sometimes it's very personal. Sometimes it's, you know, loss within a family or, you know, some big surprise. I mean, the house falls down. That happens in a flood, for example. Happened in fires, actually, in our neighborhood just last year. People's entire lives were burned down in a very short period of time. That could be like a troubled water. It can happen in our personal lives. You know, we lose someone we care about. Something that we expected to happen doesn't. Troubled waters. And then, so to think about a bridge of something being able to pass over, to help us walk over, move over a troubled water, can be something very, very comforting. Right? So in the song, it's done in first person. I will ease your mind. I will lay me down. I will take you over. But the question I have for us tonight is, who is the I in this song? And I don't mean that on a philosophical, going into the deep levels of the nature of reality question. I mean, who's the I? Is it, I mean, I know as a teenager, I wasn't thinking I would be the one. I was kind of hoping somebody would come be that for me, right? Maybe way past teenage, I was hoping somebody would come be that for me. And maybe some people have that, which is great. But there's also the possibility that I could be the one who lays down for someone else. And probably many of us have had the opportunity to be that person. Is that true? Sometime. Kind of naturally we respond to do it. Another way we could look at this bridge over troubled waters is it could be a holy being or someone outside of ourselves that we have a lot of faith and confidence in. That's a realistic way of thinking about it. What I want to submit tonight is that this I will lay me down, I will be the bridge, is actually the quality of kindness. So that's my thesis tonight, that the quality of kindness itself can be the bridge over troubled water for ourselves, for other beings, and that's what Jamil Zaki's book is about. how to be this bridge over troubled waters. Now, I want to say too, we set this theme in December, maybe, I guess, November, December. And at that time, I was really aware that there's been so much division in our country and families torn and people can't talk to each other. And I thought, oh gosh, let's do bridge over troubled waters and talk about how we can start to talk to each other and get, no matter what happens, get over this division, because it's so painful. I mean, people experience it very much in their families, in their communities. Is that true here? People got that? And it hurts. And it's been going on a long time. But things have changed since December. I mean, nowadays, I'm just looking very, very lately, there seems to be even more fear, more anxiety, more tension, rising insecurity, especially in the last little while, like even what's happening with the economy is affecting everybody. So there's even more unsteadiness around that. So can kindness be a bridge for all of that? My belief is that yes, it can. But let's see. I wanted to read the back part of this jacket because the book is interesting. 3 years you've been reading this book. Empathy is in short supply, it says. We struggle to understand people who aren't like us, but find it easy to hate them. True? True. Studies show that we are less caring than we were even 30 years ago. That's a little sobering. Studies show, and he backs that up in here, studies show that we are even less caring as a people than we were 30 years ago. In 2006, Barack Obama said that the United States was suffering from an empathy deficit. Since then, things seem to have only gotten worse. So that sounds kind of dreary. Some years ago, I was doing a talk, I think at NIC, and where Mother Teresa was cited. Of course, she died way before we started having these kinds of problems, but she was saying that, noting that the kind of suffering that she was dealing with in India was terrible, gross physical suffering. But she said, when I look at what happens in the Western world, in societies that are very rich, very wealthy, very well-to-do, she said, what I see is a level of spiritual suffering, spiritual starvation, that is not exactly the same as saying that our kindness and empathy has degraded over the last 30 years, but I think it's a point to it because of our more and more and more, with all of our success, with all of our scientific breakthroughs, with all of our technological wonders, which are fantastic and could be very beneficial, that has not helped us be happier, more fulfilled, more loving, more connected people. What's missing? That's where the empathy deficit part might come in. So I also want to say, The War for Kindness, I thought was a very weird title. Like, how do you put war and kindness in the same sentence and have it make sense? It's just like totally contradictory. But just this morning, I was reading an article about this trend now where people are saying empathy, which is ability to feel and understand what another person is thinking and feeling, right, is toxic. That it is even in some areas being called now a possibility of a sin. You could be creating a sin by having empathy or having understanding for someone different than you that might be different from what your group believes. I know, it's like, what? What? That empathy would be toxic? That is harmful to living beings and we need to strike that from our society? This is coming from high up people saying this. I thought, okay, maybe war's not a bad word. Maybe that's what we're up against, or at least a battle to somehow reclaim for ourselves what the power of kindness can do and can be. Because when we get threatened, when we feel fearful, our tendency is to defend rather than to move in kindness. That's totally kind of natural, right? You agree. And so as we, as if it's true, and I think it probably is, that we are less empathetic and kind than we might have been 30 years ago, then we more to tighten in. And to be able to extend ourselves in warmth and in kindness gets a little more, scary, too big a word? A little less safe. We're a little less sure about how forward-moving we can be. So let's talk a little bit. What is empathy, and what does it have to do with kindness? Dictionary: the ability to understand and share the feelings of others is empathy. Now, this is an innate human character. I mean, it's something we all have. It is literally built into our neurological system. We can say that now since they've discovered what mirror neurons are, which is a very popular thing to talk about. Mirror neurons mean that when we see someone else, we respond in kind. And I learned today, now I'm going to do it. If you yawn, you know how you yawn and everybody yawns afterward, right? There you go, you are quick. I'd like that too. One yawn and the whole room starts to yawn. Now I put you all to sleep. Mirror neurons. I didn't know that. But I've known about yawning for a long time, since I was a little kid. The same thing happens with when we smile. Right? Spontaneously almost. If you see a genuine smile, not the PR smile, as one of our nuns tells me I have from time to time, but the genuine smile. When you respond with a smile, you almost can't help yourself. And then when somebody's laughing, even you have no idea why they're laughing. If it's a genuine heart, belly laugh, you laugh, right? This is an empathetic response. This is our empathy calling us to be in sync with the other person. It is the basis of our movement towards kindness, right? As soon as we feel that connection, we feel that link, then we have this feeling of kindness. Now, here's what Saki said. Many of our strongest cultural norms run against empathy. Success requires competition and even cruelty. I have a feeling in this room, people don't buy that. No. But can we see how that really sort of runs our, David Brooks has been writing a lot about the meritocracy, how that runs the need to get ahead, to, even in school, do well, be the best, be best. Go ahead and go forward, get a good career, make a lot of money, it's the best thing in life. Wall Street Journal, he quotes, greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit. Yay, greed. Do I need to take a poll? How many people believe this? 0. Yeah, 0. So given with that, I mean, tons of so here also says, Zaki says, this is a myth. Empathic individuals are more likely to succeed in a number of ways. And there's tons of science now. Social science, neuroscience, psychology are proving that kindness, that reaching out to others, that connecting with other people has so many benefits for our health, so many benefits for our way of life, so many benefits for the society. And yet, really, I think it's hard to admit, or maybe I don't want to admit, that this thing about greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit, runs a lot of our world. And I'm not saying that, and I won't even bring it up to blame the billionaires who have obviously made it very, very well, but to help us look at how our own kindness, our own cultivation of kindness can be a bridge to help spread the alternative. So that even our loving kindness can be shared with even those that we most disagree with. That's what we're looking for as an aim. And so he says, the battle for kindness is a real battle. No, this is somebody reviewed him. In which people have to decide whether aggression and greed get the upper hand or possibilities of human flourishing. Which gets the upper hand? Greed? Aggression? Or human flourishing shared among members of a whole community? And that's a decision we get to make kind of every day. And does it come from the top down? No, it comes from each one of us living that. So in a part, especially now since I know I'm preaching to the crowd tonight, it's not so much about convincing people of the value of kindness, although we're going to go through some of that, but it's to remind us and shore us up to have the courage and the commitment, maybe the confidence, and the reminder that we have the potential to develop a lot of kindness. We have the potential to develop a mind that is able, or a heart that is able to even stay open to people who are very, very different from us, whose ideas are very, very different from us, who we even might hold as someone who's frightening and scary and has power over us. But the power of our own capacity to keep our heart open in kindness is like a medicine against that. Does that make sense? Yeah? Yeah. So basic human kindness, what is that? The quality of being friendly, generous, and considerate. How hard is that? Some days it's very hard. Some days it's super hard. Here's another definition. Kindness is a type of behavior marked by acts of generosity. So in his case, it's an action. Consideration, rendering assistance or concern for others without expecting praise or reward in return. That's an important little piece there. Not doing it for some kind of accolades, for money, for praise, for fame, but really a genuine wish to be of benefit with no need for return. And Buddhism might take this a little bit further, this definition of kindness. When we benefit from someone else's effort, whether it's deliberately directed towards us or not, we can see that as kindness too. And that's where we get this thing that the whole society is built on kindness. So the Dalai Lama of Tibet is one of our teachers, obviously from our Buddhist Abbey. Maybe we'll make that connection. He says very simply, my religion is kindness. Now, what does he mean by that? My religion is kindness. This little slogan shows up on Facebook things, it shows up on people's walls, it's made of wall plaques. Sometimes when something is so profound becomes just kitsch, it loses its energy for being, a message. But it's really a message. My religion is kindness, he says. Why? Because what he does is he believes very deeply in the basic goodness of living beings, of our capacity to develop kindness. And he greets everybody he meets with that expectation that we already are friends. We're already connected. We're longtime buddies. And on that basis, he greets the Chinese government, who has overtaken his country and killed how many million? 1.2 million Tibetans during the course of their occupation over the last 60 years. the country he's not going to be able to go home to probably in his lifetime. He can still hold a mind of kindness with regard to those beings. Why? Because he understands a very basic sameness about living beings. And that is every single one of us wants to be happy. No one wants to suffer. Is that true? How many people like being happy? Would prefer to be happy? How many people like suffering? Okay, in this room we all have this in common. We are complete strangers, some of us, but in this regard, we are very, very much the same. It sounds really simple. And it's super, super profound. When we recognize that similarity that we have with every human being, if we really think about it, then there really is no stranger. We really are all the same. Whatever divisions we think we might have, whatever things that keep us separate is a mental construct, because at the core, we have the same wish for happiness. We have the same wish to avoid suffering. And if we go a step further, do every being have the right to have that happiness? Why would we not? Question about that. So you're not sure. Everybody has the right. Why? Because they're human beings who wants basically to be happy and not suffer. Now, how we think we're going to get happy, we have very different methods. Very, very different ideas. And that, in a way, goes back to the whole thing about the greed in society, right? As long as we think our happiness is external, that more money is going to make us richer, a bigger boat is going to make us richer, another house on the river is going to make us happier, that our another wife is going to make us happier, another degree will make us happier. Going after, not that these things are bad to have, but that we're putting our expectation that happiness will be in these things. And then we get them, oh my gosh, they're not. We have to go for the next one, and 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 the next one. Whereas, how do people feel when you feel like you've met kindness? I mean, if we just go right to that, our connections with other living beings, and underneath that, even our own minds, is really where the source of happiness comes from. But we are super confused about that. And so that I want to go through a few of the things that the Dalai Lama talks about how to prove that kindness is our natural way of being. Because a lot of people think that competition, survival of the fittest, with which we were raised, right? I've never found this quote, but apparently Darwin was quite misquoted here. That he didn't just say it was survival of the fittest, that he talks about survival of cooperation being a part of how that fittest means. So it's not like the best, the strongest, the meanest wins. It's that by working together, even Darwin said that we need to cooperate. But here's what His Holiness says. First of all, he says, think about our response to a human smile, which we already talked about. Why do we respond to a human smile? Because we respond to kindness. He talks about the relationship of a mother and child at birth being the most basic proof of how human beings are conditioned to respond to kindness, to act from kindness. Because from birth, that baby reaches for mama, and mama reaches for that baby like that. Mothers in this room, true? True, true, absolutely. Now, the rest of us cannot remember that moment with our mothers. And after that moment, we may have a whole different relationship with our mothers. That's also true. But if at that moment of our birth, after we have been carried in somebody's body for 9 months, 10 months, or maybe less, which makes it a little more risky, we are immediately taken into the arms, given a breast to be fed or a bottle to be fed, depending, held, cleaned, wrapped, cared for. Kindness is how we enter this world. If we don't get that, we die right there. It doesn't take very long. And nobody questions that. Every mother does that. Animal mothers do that too. Mammal mothers anyway. If that's not our entryway to the world, I mean, it is. It's how we come in. It's the only way we get here. That kindness is imprinted in our mind from the get-go. And that we carry with us forward. And can continue to cultivate. Of course, life gets in the way. But then His Holiness says, number 3, consider our different responses to kindness and violence. What happens when people are kind? You move toward them. Yeah, smile, move toward them. What happens when you see anger and violence and if we were not naturally drawn to kindness, we wouldn't go to kindness and steer away from violence, right? It's right there in our experience, this proof of how important kindness is very much a part of us. And then he says, number 4, the very fact that we long for peace. Everybody longs for peace, for a peaceful world, a peaceful, calm way of being. Shows our innate preference for kindness and empathy. So if it's innate, if it is obvious, what's this decline? And why is it sometimes so hard even for us to be able to generate it, right? One thing I think that's really important to note is that it's really hard to see. Kindness is so ubiquitous. It is so much around us that we don't even see it. Another thing that's innate in us is our capacity to look for what's wrong. This is true. And, they may say it's evolutionarily because we're always looking for danger out in the jungles when we were running around with the tigers and whatever. But it is very much true. I mean, our teacher uses an example that if you paint, it's a nice color. You paint the wall, but after the painting, there's one little black spot that you missed. If you don't fix it right then, every day you're going to come in and look at that black spot. Beautiful paint job. Is this true? Yes. Yes. We see the mistake. We see the mistake. Or the same thing could be said of like when people relate to us. If you go through your day, like you're working at work, you have a successful project, your team says, everybody, says to you, you did a good job, thank you so much for leading it. And then one person says, you really messed up this piece. And I actually deserve the credit for this. All day long, all night long, all week long, what are you going to remember? The critical feedback. Do we remember that 4 or 5 other people said we did a great job? True. We dwell in the front, right? So part of cultivating our kindness is actually learning to train our minds to see it. To train our minds to see it in ourselves when we do an action of kindness, because it's so automatic, you don't even notice. But also then to take the time to recognize it in others. So I want to do a little bit of a kindness meditation. Most of you know this quite well, but it's a good one to remember again and again and again, to help us generate this experience of how to recognize and see kindness. So we'll do it more as a reflection and don't have to go deep into meditative state, but it's helpful to spend a few minutes and just think about the kindness you've experienced in your life. So get your posture somewhat. And just start by going back to that mother-child thing. Wherever, and I'm not talking about how your parents treated you when you were a teenager or younger, but from the very, very moment that you don't remember, but you can imagine the circumstances of your birth. How at that time, mother, parents, or some caretaker welcomed that child into the world. How held, protected we were. We couldn't do anything on our own. We were cleaned up, wrapped up. And for quite a long time, around the clock, someone gave us the attention we needed to be able to stay alive. We rarely think of that as an act of kindness. But now we can really look at that and go, wow. From the beginning of this life, from the beginning of this life, I've been met with kindness. So let's move forward a little bit into the growing up phase of your life. Family, friends supporting you to learn to tie your shoes. Learn to get dressed. Learn to talk. We didn't do that on our own. And as we began to go to school, the numbers of kind helpers expanded. How did we learn to read? Who taught us? How many people taught us? How did we learn to have the manners to be able to go out in public? Spend some time going forward in your life. I won't talk anymore, but think about the kind of support you've had from family, friends, and teachers right up to this day. Seeing how the influence of the very, very kindness and caring for us has brought us everything really good that's come to us. And then there's another category of beings who have been kind that is huge. And that is thinking about the kindness of strangers. And what we mean when we're talking about that is recognizing that everything we have, everything we use, everything we enjoy, from our food to our clothes, to the carpet to the room we're sitting in, have come about through the efforts of other living beings, other human beings often. And in our busy world, busy mind, it's hard to remember to think about where did the food that I had for lunch today come from? Who grew it? What did it take for them to grow it? Who harvested it? How did it get processed? Who did that? How did it get to the store? Somebody designed the package. Somebody put it on a shelf. Every one of those beings has a life just like mine. And every one of them wants to be happy, just like me. We can do this reflection for hours and not come to the end of the numbers of beings upon whom we depend for everything. And no, they didn't know they were growing that piece of broccoli for you. But because they grew it, you had lunch. And how precious that connection is with other living beings. You can see their work as acts of kindness. And we can take it one step further and even look at the people who challenge us, people we find difficult. This one's harder to see. But if we think about challenging situations or even people who might have harmed us in some way, we think about what kind of development was required of us to be able to deal with the situation. Are we better people for it in some way? That's a trite way of putting it, but did we grow? Did we learn something valuable? Even that could be seen as a kind of kindness. Again, the reflection would be that every single one of these beings that comes to mind is just like me, wanting happiness and not wanting to suffer. And we have that in common. So we can go one step further with this reflection and think, may they be happy. Okay. With gratitude coming up, in recognition of that kindness, wish them, may they be happy. May you be free from suffering. May you be at peace. May you be happy. And ideally, we do it one by one, but the time that we have, just imagine that wish for that happiness to extend to all the beings in that chain that you thought of today. From your mother and the person who delivered you, all the way up to the people who made your lunch. May they be happy. May be wonderful. So how does it feel to think like that? Things really open up, don't they? One of the things they talk about in the studies, all the kinds of studies they've done, is that the people who are most inclined to see the similarity of human beings are the people who are most inclined to be helpful. That makes logical sense, right? So there was one study done, a woman was looking at, studying in Holland, I think, the people who had saved others during World War II. What was the connector between what these people had? And what she came to realize is that it wasn't because of their religious beliefs, which is, was one theory she was operating with, and it wasn't even their personal values, but it was because what she heard from every single one of these people who had risked their lives to save others, and they weren't soldiers, right? They weren't part of the military. Was that they could see the similarity with the other human being. One person said, a human being who is lying on the floor and is bleeding, you go do something. Right? You see somebody lying on the floor, you go do something. Another said, you help people because you are human and you see there is a need. There are things in life you have to do and you do it. So this seeing our similarity is really a critical piece to using our kindness as a bridge to be able to cross over the troubled waters of our relationships with other living beings in this world today and every day. There was an interesting study, it wasn't in this book, it was in Fearless Compassion. Courageous Compassion, where the researchers were looking at how just this very little bit of recognition of similarity made a difference. They set up this experiment where they had people in two pairs, two groups, a test group and another group, and they were each pair had headphones on, listening to music, and in pair A they were listening to the same music. In pair B they were listening to different music. And the first task was, with their headphones, to sit together side by side and just tap to the music. So of course, the people listening to the same music are tapping in sync, assuming they have any rhythm. But the other pair different. So the next task in this experiment then is that one of the people in the pairs was assigned to go do something that was really kind of a drudge, monotonous task. You have to go do this, and you can get help if you want it. So that's where the similarity thing really showed up, because the people who tapped together had like 30, oh my God, I can't remember the percentage, the numbers. Anyway, a whole lot more of the people who tapped together were totally willing to go in and help the other person do the tasks. Where the other group, not very many. And further, they didn't last so long. They might have started and then they sort of peeled off. But the people who had tapped together, a huge percentage of them stayed and did the whole task together. So it's a very kind of silly experiment if you look at it, but it shows so clearly that it doesn't take very much to see that we have this similarity. So if we can cultivate a habit of recognizing that every single living being wants to be happy and doesn't want to suffer, and that we all have this in common, what kind of society would we all be living in if we were willing to help each other along the way? It's kind of a beautiful vision and not impossible. So before we get into the Q&A, which I should have probably started a few minutes ago, I just want to say my mission today is to make us all kindness activists. To help us, cultivate thinking about just these things. The kindness I receive from my family and friends, the kindness I receive from strangers, the kindness even I receive from difficult people. To start making that as a habit in our lives, to pay attention to that and not the harm. Because yes, let's not deny it, it happens. Everything isn't hunky-dory and beautiful. I'm not trying to say life is all love and light and bliss, it's not. But if we measure the difference between how much kindness we have received on a daily basis with the hassles and troubles and difficulties we receive, kindness is actually way higher. We just don't have the habit of seeing it. I'm going to end with this kind of great quote that was up. Maybe I found it on his website. I did find it on the War for Kindness website. And my Bible verse is here too, but that's not what I want to read you. This is from an Israeli novelist, well-known, well-loved, who is also a peace advocate in Israel. He's passed now. But he says, combating hatred is like firefighting. Bring a bucket of water and throw it on the fire. If you don't have a bucket, bring a glass. If you don't have a glass, bring a teaspoon. Everybody has a teaspoon. And yes, I know a teaspoon is little and the fire is huge, but there are millions of us and each one of us has a teaspoon. So it's not like we need to go out and, make big speeches and change the world, but we have a teaspoon of returning kindness with kindness. We have a glass full of returning kindness with kindness. We can even return unkindness with kindness when we develop this capacity to see it, knowing that it's innate. It's not like something we have to make up. We have it. It's our willingness or our, not even willingness. It's our confidence that we have it to give and our confidence that it can be given. So, he says, use the power of social norms for good by reinforcing this kindness. But this happens in our family. It's good for our communities. It's good for the world. That's my pitch. Questions, comments?
Hello there.
Okay, good.
One question I had is, when you come here to preach to everyone, do you do it in hopes to convert people to Buddhism, or do you do it in just the hope to spread kindness to the world?
Spreading kindness.
One more question.
Yeah, but I just want to say this, really, really important. Buddhists, am I off? Well, anyway, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so our job is not to convert. And we're not here to convert. We're not even practicing to convert. But what's true is there's so much in these teachings that is just like fundamental human truth that anybody can use. Anybody, anywhere, anytime. We have Christians come, spend time with us. I mean, so that is really the purpose, is to be able to make this kind of thinking available to anybody. And we also don't expect you to believe it, you know. You have to try it. You have to test it and see if this is true. I should have said that at the beginning. Yeah, okay, next question.
My other question was, in my very, very little research, so correct me if I'm wrong, in Buddhism, that traditionally you guys don't believe in sin, you believe in karma. So like karma over, you're saying, can you talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit, because karma is a little bit complicated, but karma and sin don't relate, don't correlate. Is that the word I want? So the reason we don't believe in sin per se is that the recognition that just like this quality of empathy is innate in human beings, we also have, when we can really clearly see, we also have anger, jealousy, pride, greed, all those things rise up. But they are just as, we call them adventitious. They pass through. It's not like anybody is permanently angry. Anybody is permanently hateful. Anybody is permanently sinful. They come and they go. And from the Buddhist point of view, these are like clouds obscuring the beautiful, clear mind heart underneath it all. And they can be removed. So this idea that we are sinners from the beginning, actually here we do have almost the opposite, is that everybody has the potential to completely eliminate all those negative emotions. And what's left then, our compassion, our love, our generosity, our capacity to be of benefit to all beings, and that's our intention. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Question, comment? What you got?
Can I be lazy? No.
You need a
I
microphone.
wanted to add on to the sin thing, because I used to Christian. I think sin is more like violation of arbitrary rules that we put down, by God. And if you violate these, then, this will happen. But in my mind, karma is kind of like, if you throw a ball in there, it's got to come down. God didn't say, ball down. No. So it's kind of like karma, like punching. It's not like a violation of a law. It's kind of like a natural consequence. If you eat what you could repeat, it's nobody saying, you're gonna go to Coop Tail, it's just kind of, that's the way I look at it. But there is.
Oh, I'm sorry you don't have a mic. She's so right on. Can you hear her?
But there are some things that are what they call naturally negative. Killing someone, it doesn't have to be a rule for that to be a bad thing. Like we know that's bad. So there are things that are naturally non-virtuous and things like giving. But does that make sense? There are.
But it's still not a sin.
There's no rule like that. And nobody can punish you. It's just what will naturally happen as a result.
Yeah. Thanks, Rashika. That's right on. Totally right. Anybody question? Comment? Yes.
So how do you balance like where the line is for like kindness and compassion and then your own personal ability, right? Like if you live in a large urban area, you probably can't give money or resources to every person you
Right.
pass that asks, right?
Right. Very good question. Because it's not necessarily the action. What's more important, the action may follow to the extent that we have the capacity to do so. But the main thing is that our mind, our intention, our motivation is still open. So that I wish I could give, I can at least smile. I didn't get to my smile section. Smiling is one of the best ways to actually open the door and be in relationships with others. And you know what? Smiling also naturally releases endorphins in your mind. This is true. You don't even have to feel it. If you just do this, People who tend to get depressed should know this. You just do this. It triggers something in the brain. The science is there. It's a neurological thing. I did want to look up and see what Botox does to that particular thing. I don't know. I haven't seen this. But anyway, so it's much more the intent. And then when your heart is open, you can smile at every beggar on the street, and they will promise you they will not have been smiled at all day long. That is a gift. That is your own practice of generosity. And if you have a quarter, that's good too. So it's more like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes?
Venerable Chonyi talked about the critical mind. She talked about the one spot on the wall that, that people want to point out, and that you could get 10 compliments and notice that one. I found for my practice and my own confidence and my belief in my goodness, that if I can not point out that spot, if I can not have negative thoughts about people that aren't dressing like me or don't look like me, if I can catch those thoughts and say to myself, well, they're just trying to be happy, that is what builds my confidence. And sometimes it feels powerful, especially you get together with a friend or two who think the same way you do and want to talk about, oh, that's terrible way this person does this. It feels strong and powerful, but I think at the end, in our subconscious, we're not going to feel good of ourselves if we do that. So that is the most powerful thing I can do with my own mind is see that they're just trying to be happy.
Yeah, it's a great antidote to the critical mind. And I imagine we all have critical minds. I don't think it's just me. No. Okay, one more question, one more comment. Yes.
Venerable, I have a question. Could you clarify how we relate to people who are making the arguments against empathy? Because in the beginning, you talked about the war on kindness, and there are, quoted people who are saying things that are encouraging people to not be kind.
Right.
How should we relate to them, Venerable?
With compassion. Honestly, think about it. If we've just gone through this whole thing of looking at the kind of kindness we have each had in this life, did anybody come up saying, oh my gosh, I never had any? No. What kind of pain must a person be in to think that kindness is not beneficial? That kindness is swimpy? That caring for other living beings is somehow detrimental to the economy? What kind of thinking? Like, how could somebody, what kind of mind would that be, and how much suffering there must be in that person somewhere? I mean, this is maybe a judgment too, but I look at that and go, wow, if you really believe that, and you must, because that's what you're saying, how can we, I just need to hold you in kindness, in the very kindness that you want to put down. Now, I don't have a direct relationship with any of those people. How that would be to live with, I don't know. But I would think that the only way to actually be able to live with that is to recognize they're trying to be happy. That is it's so simple, and it is so powerful to go to that root. This is a person who's trying to be happy, and they are confused about where happiness comes from. So that's the thing to do. One of the things that Jamil Saki, talks about is, he has lots and lots of examples. There's so much science in here, I kind of got bored. But, first of all, but he does talk about working with people who have gone heavily into hate groups, and the recovery process of young men in particular coming out of those hate groups and how they do that with respect for them, with understanding for them, with love for them, and finding that when these young men come to a place where they know that they are accepted, when they are held with a group of people who have held their belief, there's no judgment, no conversion, no, like you're wrong, but finding a way to create a sense of love that can reawaken that, if I can say that, they see the change. Nobody is a lost cause. Nobody. We may or may not catch them in this life, but nobody is really a lost cause. Everyone has that potential to change and grow. And there are people who are just, phenomenal saint-like, bodhisattva-like people who work with people whose minds are very far off from what I think is healthier, bring them to benefit. So that would be my thought. Okay, we're at time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming and speaking with us.
Yeah, so I want to do a little bit of a digestion meditation. We'll take about 2 minutes. That's what my teacher calls it. Thinking a little bit about what we heard tonight, what we shared tonight. And what would you like to take home with you? And touching back in on the motivation that we said at the beginning, if we can kind of consciously send rays of light or rays of good wishes, or wishes for beings to be happy from everything that we've shared, the space that we've shared here together tonight. May our own capacity for kindness grow. May it touch all living beings. Yeah, and in that way, may all beings benefit. Okay. Thanks. Please come visit us at Sravasti Abbey. We love having guests. There's a whole bunch of stuff about what we do out there. You're all welcome. We will not try to convert you. We just take care of what we've got. It's a fair question. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. Appreciate it. Thank you, Venerable